Hi everybody, I hope you've been having a good weekend. It's time for the weekend video. Today, I want to talk to you about a phone call I got a couple days ago that reminded me of a phone call I got about 3 years ago. Both of them from gospel revolutionaries who definitely get the gospel. And, but something had still stuck from their teaching growing up, and it was the subject of dying to self. And so in this recent phone call, a good friend of ours called me, and he's like, Jeff, there's something that I need to ask you about. What do you think about dying to self? And I knew immediately where he was getting that from. He's, Bible taught, and Paul speaks of dying to self in a couple different areas or different writings that he wrote. And so before I get to Paul, let me get to the common perception of dying to self is, because it's taught pretty broadly throughout Christianity that we in effect need to die to ourselves. And the way it's taught is you got to snuff yourself out. The you has to go so that only Christ is visible, only Jesus is visible. And unfortunately, that's something that I was taught and tried to adhere to myself, and I didn't like it because everything I tried to do to snuff out the me that shouldn't be there because I'm the problem, right? It was killing me. Well, that's what happens, and I couldn't handle it. But what I came to realize was that Paul's words started coming back to me, and every time he spoke that way, he was talking about the flesh and about the law and about the spirit. So you've got a spirit of grace and a law of sin and death. And if you live by the spirit, you'll be in good shape. But if you live by the flesh, you need to die to that. Well, what Paul was really getting at was that part of us that was taught and trained to please God, to obey God, and to make up for anything we thought we did wrong that made God unhappy. So basically, that is living by the law. You believe in a God that you do good, you get good, and if you do bad, you get beat. So, and that comes from the way we were taught overall. It comes from the way we were reared as children, and also then, of course, the religion that taught us to do that too. And it just gets commingled, and it trains us to a point where we have a knee-jerk reaction in our thinking and in our emotions. And that is the part that Paul said that he died to. And I came to that myself, and when I realized that what I needed to actually snuff out was my legalistic thinking, because it taught me to live in a way to please God, and it taught me to view others in the same way. If they aren't living a certain way, then they're not pleasing God. And it had adverse effects on me too, because I would expect people, if they are a loving person, if they're a good person, then they should be exactly the way I expect them to be. And when they turned out not to be the way I expected them to be, especially in their dealings with me, then I would either be angry or hurt. Once I took those expectations off of them and myself, and I had to do it simultaneously, I discovered the person actually loved me and cared about me. And not only that, I discovered the uniqueness of them, and I started discovering myself too. Um, God does not, his intent was never to snuff you out or me out, to snuff out our identities and make us all Jesus clones. That was never the point. It was to set us free, and to set us free from the law, to deliver us from the law, to deliver us from that whole thinking of trying to please Him. And in the process, you take all those expectations off yourself, and you get to breathe a little bit, and your love gets to breathe a little bit, and you get to discover yourself in others and the uniqueness of each other. Um, the gospel was meant for you to be you, not for you to be snuffed out. That was never what the freedom of the gospel was to do. Anyway, I hope that helped anybody who was grappling with that, because I've discovered gospel revolutionaries still grapple with some of those concepts. And I'll take more calls if you want to call me about it. Anyway, I hope you have a good week.